Hey everybody, I'm Dee Lisa, the Dream Doula. I help women tap into the intuition that comes every night in dreamland to live their best life.
And I'm Joe Bills. I'm the owner and founder of House of Energetics, a practice that's devoted to uh, clearing real estate and clearing business and clearing the field around the energetics around individuals.
Joe, I remember when I knew you a little bit because we worked together in a real estate office. And
Yeah.
one day I was volunteering, although begrudgingly, to for the shred event. It was raining, we're standing outside, and I was wearing my medicine. I was wearing my medicine pouch. Oh, I think
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah. I
and you
remember
said, is that a medicine pouch? And I was like, yeah.
that.
And he goes, we should talk. And
Yeah,
so suddenly I wasn't just some girl that worked in the real estate office, but I was a little bit more interesting to you because of my woo woo, which I now I live in Southern California. I said, I used to think I was woo woo in Seattle. Now I'm not even one woo.
yeah. Just a whoa.
I'm
Uh,
just,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So I later learned that you do this shamanic energy work. And for years, I had you clear properties for me when I was putting homes on the market to sell. Let's talk about that for a minute. Like the whole concept that there's obviously energy in a house because you can walk into a room and feel that someone just had an argument, but it's even deeper than that.
yeah. I mean, it is. We are energetic beings, and so and we're in sort of an artificial space. A house is full of hard corners and hard surfaces, and you spend a lot of time in there, and you have kids or partners or and arguments or whatever happens to be going on in there. And so we're generating a lot of energy in there. And particularly in real estate, say a house is going to go on the market, people can move their furniture out, their belongings, but the imprint of them is sort of left behind. And so uh, what I would see in real estate is like it checks all the boxes. It's a three-bedroom house and it's got two bathrooms and it's got a nice view and a garage and it's everything the client is looking for. But they walk into the house and they're like, nope, this is not for me. Um, and they couldn't necessarily pinpoint why the house wasn't for them, but didn't feel right. And
Yeah, I've heard that. It didn't feel right. Once I went into a house when I was a brand new baby agent and previewing brand new listings. Let's go see what's new on the market. And I went to this house. All the curtains were closed. It was dark inside. I think there were like brown walls. I don't know. It just gave me the creeps. And I came back to the office and I said to the broker, that house was creepy. And he said, oh, come into my office and close the door. I'm like, what? Because we're going to have to disclose to any buyer that the husband of the house killed his entire family and then himself out in the front yard.
well,
I'm like,
and
well, just open the curtains. Like, man, it was creepy. So, yeah, not only that had the imprint there in the house that anybody who was just a regular person could feel. I think houses from the day they were born or whoever built them. So what if it's 100-year-old house and seven different families used to live there? All those people's energy is still lingering.
yeah, particularly if there's big energy, like if
Mm.
somebody uh, had big energy in the house, that is harder to sort of dissipate because it's a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
big energy. And so there can be spirit activity, there can be ghosts in the house. Sometimes children, because they haven't been shut down yet, will see that sort of activity
Yeah. Yeah.
and will let us know that it's happening. But you can even have contractors in a house, right, that may have issues that are working on the house and their imprint can be left behind. So uh,
Yeah.
nobody should live in other someone else's energetics. And even if something is vacant, I know I cleared our office, our real estate office
Yeah.
once, and it was 100 years old. And there were a lot of homelessness and stuff and troubles on the street. And a lot of that had crept into the building. And so it was fascinating to clear that space. Um, and people noticed very quickly. I mean, I think I did it late at night one night because the manager was unsure of how it would be received, but people instantly within a couple of days were noticing how good it felt in the office.
Yeah.
So so it is real. I too have walked into a house uh, here in Seattle, and I got, I don't know, 10 or 15 steps in, and I'm like, nope, I'm out, and went, like, would not go downstairs. There was something downstairs. I don't know what it was, but I was not going to go find out. This was probably 20 years ago. And I just went right back out the front door and I was out of there. So it is real. When there are big energies in a house like that, or there's been death or suicide or cancer or divorce or all the things that we as humans sort of go through, those imprints can be left behind. And so the bigger the energy, the more it takes to clear it. So you can go burn some sage in a house, and that's going to clear the air a little bit. But in order to actually reset the history of a house, I go in and set up an altar where I have my guides and allies and powerful beings that I work with to help me. Um, and then I have to sort of overwhelm whatever's there and push it out. So the bigger the energy, the bigger I have to get, or the altar has to get, in order to match it and then move it out of this realm into another.
Where does it go?
Well, if it's particularly ferocious and I want to make contact with it, I can throw it into fire and send it
Mm.
back to God. Um, Most of the time, I just am very stringent, and I'm like, you can't stay here. You got to go, and I just push it out of this realm. And I'm not really concerned about where it goes. It just can't stay here.
It's
Um,
kind of like the bartender's message at 2 a.m. Yeah, you don't have to stop drinking. You just can't drink here. You gotta
yeah,
go.
well, yeah, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here,
Right.
which is uh, very much the same concept. In fact, you had me clear a house that was in a 55 and older community up in, I
Yeah.
want to say Issaquah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Michael, my partner, and I went out there and walked in, and it was vacant, so there was no furniture in there. But I could feel that I could feel a little old lady in there.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm like, yeah, we need to clear it. And she was harmless, but you could feel that a little old lady lived in there. And so we set up the altar. Once I got the altar engaged, the the smoke detectors started beeping, which I'm like, oh, I haven't even started blowing smoke in the place yet. And the smoke alarm started to go off, just, like they do if the battery's low. But
Yeah.
it had been quiet the whole time we were there. Set up the altar. So I'm calling in a bunch of help to clear it. And I start getting the beep, like fascinating. And so this is when I first started really working with tobacco to clear space, and cleared the space. And when I was a little green afterwards, because tobacco, I use tobacco from the jungles of Peru. So it's not like Virginia tobacco. It's very powerful, has about 10 times the nicotine. So I was a little green afterwards. But uh, when we were done, the place was so neutral, you couldn't tell who lived in there, whether it was a man, whether it was a woman. It was completely neutral space. And it sold shortly thereafter, which was great.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If you're a real estate broker wondering if you should hire someone, as hire Bill, hire Joe Bills because he makes it so neutral that anyone can come in and say, I like this house. I would live here. Where I think if you don't do that kind of energetic clearing, you go into a space and maybe if you match the energy that's already there, you're cool living there. And if
Yeah.
you
Well,
if you clash with it, you got to go.
yeah. I mean, it's nice to kind of take it back to a blank canvas so
Yeah.
somebody can fill it with their love and their relationship and their hopes and dreams. Um, if you so you can shift the energy over time on your own, but it can be kind of rough. The other thing is history does tend to repeat itself, so it's nice to clear those dynamics out just so you can have your own experience and you're not merged with someone else's trauma. uh,
Yeah.
or someone else's dynamics. So um, I walked into a house, well, this is a couple of years ago here on Capitol Hill, and it was a beautiful house, big tall ceilings, open concept, kitchen, living room. And I walked in to take a look at it, and I'm like, oh, this house is in divorce. When
You
I
could
was in
just
the
tell.
kitchen, I could feel them, firing lobs at each other, like fighting across the counter. And I'm like, yeah, I'm out of here. And I told the broker, you might think about clearing the house because I can feel them fighting. Uh, and it took a while to sell. They didn't call me to have it cleared, but it did sell eventually. But, whoever moved into that space uh, had to sort of clear that on their own over time, which is possible. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It's very interesting uh, to think that even the average person can feel the energy of a space that they go into. They know if it
absolutely.
feels bad, they know if it feels good. For years, I've had people come to my house and I think, I just cleaned it up. I sprinkled my essential oils around. I've got everything organized the way I like. And they're like, this house feels so good.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And I never knew why, but I think it's because I constantly was clearing out any other energy that wasn't mine.
Well, it's a solid practice. And I too do the same thing. I often say I live in an altar.
Yeah.
But we're energetic beings and we have people over and we're constantly generating our own energy. And so, I burp the condo here on a regular basis, just, open the windows, open the sliding glass door to get some fresh air in. I do burn sage. I do blow smoke in here. I've got certain crystals in the corners uh, to sort of build a grid where I have limits and boundaries here. And so, I live in a community building so that other people's energy isn't bleeding in here. And so it's just a good practice uh, to keep the space clear. And sometimes I just rearrange things to keep it fresh and alive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk for a minute because you've mentioned sage twice. And I know an indigenous woman down here in Southern California who says, don't buy sage in the store
Well,
because it's now an endangered plant. White sage grows from Southern California to Baja, Mexico. That's the only place it grows in the world. And poachers are going out into native lands and parks and just stealing the entire plant. They rip the plant up by the roots, stuff it in a garbage sack, and take it to their person. So ideally, you grow your own sage, or you get it gifted to you.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
but smoke, I mean, you can use any kind of smoke to clear the energy, right? If you like incense, you could use that.
You can actually even just use your breath.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
it's
tell
it's
us more
actually
about that.
it's actually the intention. Um, so if I don't smoke. I use tobacco ceremonially to clear energy.
Okay,
So which is unique because I'm not addicted. I smoke a lot of tobacco. I don't inhale it, but I use a lot of tobacco, but I'm never craving it because I have a super clean relationship with it because I
right.
just use it ceremonially. I don't have a shitty relationship with tobacco where if I was addicted to cigarettes, I'd have a different relationship. Um, but just with your breath, if I don't have tobacco around, I can just clean myself off. So if I go clears off some other energy or my dreams go south, I know I've picked up something. And so I'll clean myself. So I could rattle myself off if I have a rattle, or I could blow smoke on myself to clear myself energetically. And if I don't have that, I can just blow on myself because it's my breath, it's my livelihood. And so I can blow on myself just to clean other people's energy off of me.
Oh, that's so cool. I tell people that if they got other people's energy stuck on them, they could take a shower and imagine it going down the drain.
Yep,
Water's
absolutely.
good for that too, but I've never heard the breath is so easy. You have your breath with you all the time.
Well, and I was traveling to do a workshop in Milwaukee and I was looking like what hotel to book. And this one just kept calling out to me, like, book here, book here, book here. So we did. We booked at this hotel, flew to Milwaukee, stayed there. I was there for a day. The next day, I find out there had been a mass murder event at that hotel 2 years earlier. And I did not bring my tools. I did not expect to be doing shamanic work at this hotel, but I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense why I'm here. I didn't have a rattle or anything, but I had like some Tylenol or Advil in a bottle, which I could shake to rattle. And I went looking for where sort of this event happened. And it was some church group where someone had come in and shot a bunch of people. And I was
Mm.
able to find the ballroom space that had happened, and I could see some spirit activity in there where this sort of horrible event had happened. And I'm just there with my bottle of Advil, rattling and sort of helping these people who'd crossed move on to where they need to go and
Yeah.
just clear the space. So, sometimes we have to be creative, but we have access to all sorts of things. And sometimes we just need to find a creative solution to show up to the work.
I love it. Yeah. Years ago, maybe 20, 25 years ago, I read a book called Clear Your Clutter with Feng Shui by Karen Kingston. And she talks about, I remember at the time, I'm like, when you clean your house every week was like the beginning of her book. I was like, I don't do that every week. When you clean your house, put out a bowl of water with fresh flowers floating on the top, start a candle burning, and go about your cleaning, mopping, dusting, everything. And then at the end of the cleaning, physical clean of your house, she suggests that you clap the energy out
Yep.
in your house, and then you ring a bell. She had like, don't ring just any bell, buy a temple bell from Tibet. So she had a source for that. And then maybe a squeaky toy, and then let the candle burn down, pour the water out your front porch, and your house is clear.
Yeah.
And when I learned that, I think smoke was in there too, but when I learned that you could just make noise to clear the energy, I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I've tried that in big spaces that I went into. So before the people came into the space, I clapped around the space and it totally changed the way the room was.
Well, and you can feel where the energy is stuck in the room because you'll hear an audible difference where it starts to sound a little dead. And
Yeah, it
so,
sounds dull.
yeah, it sounds dull. So you'll clap harder
Yeah.
in that spot and you'll clear the space from there. Um, when I go in and bless a house, it's kind of like peeling an onion. So I'll just sort of go in and take a look around first to sort of see, where feels stuck, or I'll see like a haze or some heaviness. Kind of like dust bunnies, things tend to collect in the corners and
Right.
down low and up high. Um, and then, I'll go through with a rattle and I'll rattle. And I've got some really loud rattles that are sort of hard to be around because they're so loud, but it really breaks up the energy. I'll go in with
Oh.
smoke and I'll blow smoke into the various parts of the room. I have a singing bowl where and it is the note of power. So your uh, chakra just below your heart chakra. And I'll play the singing bowl to get everything into alignment
That's
in the
beautiful.
room. And I will use a little bit of sage. And then you can take a candle and light it and then put light into the walls.
Oh, that's cool. I haven't tried that.
Yeah. So
Pushing the light.
pushing light into the walls.
Okay.
And you can also uh, take a bowl with some flowers and some water and a candle, and you can put that in the center of, say, the living room. And then you walk to the next room where you can still see the first bowl, and you put a second bowl there. And then you
Mm.
go to the next room where you can see the bowl you just left, and you put a bowl there. And then you build essentially a constellation of light that has flowers and water. So it's got the elements, all the elements of the earth, water, fire, and air. And you'll build a constellation of the home, and then you can draw it out. And that's what the constellation of that house looks like.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And then for the person listening, when I read Karen's book and when I thought about it all these years since, I think if you're a beginner, you're not trained, you should not try to clear other people's houses. You should only do your own.
You should, and it can be difficult to clear your own, but absolutely. It can be dangerous. I, yeah, so please don't go start clearing other people's houses. I have a, you know, 15 years worth of training, and I have been in a dangerous situation. Uh, we can talk about or not talk about where I had to then go get myself cleaned up immediately afterwards because I got hit with something that I needed to get off of me. Uh, you should really hire someone who's got some training and knows what they're doing, particularly if there's any big energies in there, because you can be overwhelmed. And though it's not your stuff, you don't want it to become your stuff. So you really need to know what you're doing if it is a rough space for sure. But you can do your own space. The challenge with that is if you're producing, I can come in and clear your space, but if you're living in the house and regenerating the energy I just cleared, you're going
Yeah.
to fill it back up again.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. When I learned about clearing the house energy and would do this on a pretty regular basis, not every week, but maybe once a month, I was married at the time uh, in a doomed relationship. So my husband loved to argue and disagree. I would clear the energy in the house. It would be clean. It would be awesome. He'd come home every single time and pick a fight with me.
yeah,
Every single time. I went from, oh, I love the energy in the house to argue, argue, argue. I'm like, oh, so he was comfortable with this level of anger energy in the house that I was letting go of, and he brought it back.
he was uncomfortable. He was so used to being in that angry, energetic
Yep,
environment that if he was in a space that didn't have that energetic in it, he'd fill the room with it
yep,
because that was his natural state. And so you'd clear it and he'd fill it back up again. So you end
yep.
up in this, chasing your tail situation.
Right on.
Um, yeah. So, uh, isn't it great when we step out of those relationships and don't have to be in that pattern anymore?
Totally. I do remember at that kind of the same era, we were having an argument, and I kind of had this like slightly out of body experience where I was like watching him look really, really happy while we were disagreeing in like a restaurant in some public place. He was like, and I was like, wow. I said, you're really happy right now. No, I'm not. But
Yeah.
his face looked like a happy little kid while he
Yeah.
was bringing that argue energy in. I was like, wow, 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 wow.
Well,
So how would you help somebody, or have you ever helped somebody who's like, my relationship is really effed up. Can you come clear my house?
uh, I can come clear the house, but if they stay in the relationship and stay in the dynamic, not much is going to change. I do work with individuals who
Mm,
are having this issue. And so, we do single hour sessions on a somewhat regular basis, and we sort of unpack what's going on in their world and get them into alignment. And then once
yeah,
they're in alignment, then it is much easier for them to see what in their environment isn't in alignment with them, or it's creating discord. And it's not instantaneous, but then sometimes we can take the steps we've been avoiding and step into a more peaceful space. And
yeah,
that may involve ending a relationship,
yeah,
um, or shape shifting the one that you're in so that you're not that dynamic comes from. Often these things are running in the background. So you don't even know that the program is running. It's just running
right.
all the time and it's in your blind spot. So you
Hmm.
can't see it. So just meeting with someone once a week for an hour, you start unpacking some of these things. And what we attempt to do is to bring some of that stuff that's in a blind spot into the light so you can look at it and then either choose to live with it or maybe make some changes so that you're having a better experience in the world.
So basically, that would be like energetic coaching. What do you call that?
uh it's it is certainly, I'm a mentor and guide for people, so I certainly don't tell people what to do, but we can have some real conversations about what's happening and let them choose. Do I want to keep doing this? I hit myself with the hammer all the time. uh in fact, Brene Brown has an interesting saying. She said, she was talking about someone who's like, I feel like I'm a turtle without a shell and a briar bush. And Brene, I need a shell. I need a turtle shell. And Brene's like, you don't need a turtle shell. You need to get out of the briar patch.
Yeah, right on. Right on. Oh, that's so beautiful. So not only house clearing, not only energetic work with humans one-on-one, you also mentioned that you can do an energetic clearing on a business. Not the business hardware like the one you just talked about at the real estate firm, but the energetics of the business as an entity that would live not just on paper. How would you do that?
Yeah. So I guess it's about 3 or 4 years ago. I was asked to come help uh, a guy who was working in a shed in his mom's backyard building a metaverse company, which 3 or 4 years ago, before AI really came uh, to front and center, the metaverse was going to be the next big thing. And I was clearing his shed, um, and I was blowing smoke on his feet. And I realized I was in front of greatness and that he was going to build something that was amazing. And so I realized I wanted to help this guy. And so we began working together once a week, uh, and working on his metaverse company. And it was a fascinating process. Clearing, the metaverse is not really tied into this reality. So when I would look, it was sort of out there in the ethers, but it wasn't really grounded. There was a bunch of noise and static around it. He was having problems with his board. He was chasing money. So we did some simple things. We grounded the company. I tied it in to the universe because it was sort of very ethereal. I'd clean his board of directors, so that they were more in alignment with each other. Um, he was chasing money all the time, and I'm like, that's interesting. I'd like to switch your polarity. So instead of you chasing money, I'd like you to be a magnet for money. So we're gonna, just like on a battery, I'm going to change you from to start attracting investors. And so, I would get on the pipe, and tobacco's a highly programmable master plan. So I could pray into that tobacco and then send the smoke up into the ethers and work on all sorts of different elements of his business. And we very quickly had some incredible changes in the company. And he's now morphed out of metaverse. He's in phase two. In fact, that original version of the company is getting prepared for sale for $25 million. And so we still work together on a weekly basis, um, working on the energetics of the business to keep it in alignment, to keep investors in alignment, to keep his customers in alignment. And so it's been a fascinating experience. And so I do absolutely do work with businesses to work in the energetic world to make the business successful.
Yeah, because we do live in an energetic world. I was asked earlier today by these two women something like, how do we tap into our dreams and our waking life? And I think I blew their mind a little bit by like, what is real? Like my 4-year-old asked me, which is real, mommy, when we're dreaming or when we're awake? And I said, what do you think, honey? And she said, I think they're both real.
They are both real.
And you're talking about even beyond that dream state and the awake state, there's another state where it's kind of like you're in a dream state, but your eyes are open.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the beyond the veil, so to speak, that there's energy and entities and all this other stuff happening than what our logical brain for materialists think is true or real.
Well, it's very true. And I had said to myself and to others over the past couple of years, because I've been selling real estate for 19 years. I'd be the happiest guy on the planet if I could do energetic work every day of the week and have it pay my bills. And I was saying that often enough. I finally caught myself one day and I'm like,
Hey,
if I be the all I have to do is do energetic work every day and I'd be the happiest guy on the planet. What's stopping me from doing that? And my energetic work was never advertised. I didn't even have a business card. People would find me, but I certainly wasn't broadcasting. And it forced me. I'm like, huh, there's a dream that wants to come through me, and it's about time I do something about it. And so I
yeah.
spent the last 5 months or so putting House of Energetics into form, and it's finally up and out there. Um, and I realized about 2 weeks ago, when it was actually up where someone could pay for a service, that it's the first time in my life in 62 years where I am authentically myself. I have built this thing with my pictures, my verbiage. It's my gifts and talents put out there. And in real estate, I'd always sort of mask. I'd be careful, like, how's this client going to think about me clearing the energetics in the house? Like, they
Yeah.
may like that, they may not like that. So I would sort of mask myself to avoid any sort of discord or criticism. And so in creating House of Energetics, I was able to just be myself and show the world what's possible. And once I put it out there, I'm like, this is the first time in my life I've been 100% authentic and I don't have to mask who I am. And people can take a sip, they could take a full cup, you know, or they can just pass by because it's not for them, and that's okay.
It's so interesting what you said about real estate. When I was trained to be a real estate broker in Seattle back in the 80s, we were told what kind of car to drive. A late model, four-door, light colored car. Keep it
Yeah,
clean all the time because you're going to drive people around. If you're a woman, you should have wear a suit or a pantsuit. If you're a man, you're supposed to wear a suit and a tie.
yeah.
Uh, Keep your fingernails groomed. I mean, and never, ever, ever talk about politics. Never, ever, ever put a bumper sticker on your car. And
Nope.
so all those years, I was in real estate for 35 years. All those years, I was not really authentic.
No, and because you don't want to talk politics because you instantly alienate half the population.
Right on.
So
Yeah.
we're constantly morphing to sort of fit in and get approval. And I tell you, I noticed once I got this up that I'm not seeking approval. I hope that people come and want the service, but it's the first time like this is who I am, and take it or leave it. And I'm hoping that that the universe meets me under my feet and I'm walking on solid ground, and we'll see what happens.
Plus, you have a good backstory. Like people could say, "How'd you get into this?" and go, "Oh, well, a long time ago." Do you want to talk a little bit about what you did up until now that kind of broke your brain a little bit?
Well, so when I was probably 10 years old, uh, I sort of knew what was going to happen before it happened. Like I was worried
You
about the
were the
next.
kid that like, oh, grandma's gonna get sick.
I told the next door neighbor, her name was Gloria, she was going to drive back to San Diego that day. And I said, I do not want you driving back to San Diego today. Under no circumstances do I want you to leave. And she goes, I got to go back because I
Yeah,
got to
she's
work
talking to a
tomorrow.
10-year-old, honey. I'll be fine.
Yeah. And she got in a horrible car accident. Um, and so, you know, I had gifts and talents, but I think they were quickly shut down. And then, life happens. And I too had a failed relationship and a failed business and was using drugs and alcohol. And I think trying to, get into the other realms, but with absolutely no training. So I was in the dark side most of the time. And, in February 13th, 2007, I realized I couldn't take another moment of that life because everything had unraveled. And the beautiful thing about walking out of a house, turning your back on a relationship and walking out of the house with a pillow and a blanket and your cat and climbing in your car and driving away is you get to make new choices about everything. And I found recovery, so I got clean and sober. I ended up helping other people get clean and sober. I ended up in a circle with a Lakota shaman who said, "You have gifts and talents, you just need some training." And my schooling began, and I spent 7 years with that Lakota shaman.
Okay, wait, hold the bus. You are having a life just like a lot of people listening, probably drugging and drinking to dull the pain, being in a relationship you really should get out of. That all cracks your world open, and you go to this recovery circle where you meet your mentor who's going to bring you here.
When you're ready, the teacher shows up, and the teacher showed up. And I started the process. So the next thing I knew, I was her assistant. And I did her program, which was a 3-year program, twice, once as a student, once as her assistant, and left the program after about 7 years and learned a tremendous amount. And then found another Lakota shaman who had Celtic traditions where I learned more. And then I found myself with herbalists drinking ayahuasca 100+ times and
What? You
began
did
a
the
relationship
Alaska
with plants.
100 times?
I've had 110 nights of ayahuasca over the
Oh,
last 6 or 7 years.
that's a lot.
And ayahuasca is interesting, but where the rubber meets the road is really the the plants, master plants that can be used in that world to clear energies. And
Mm.
I've dieted 5 different master plants, and those seedlings of those plants live inside me now. And so when I set up an altar, not only am I working with owl medicine and some of the stuff I learned in shamanic training, but I'm bringing in the energies of plants. And these are the same plants that become the seeds for pharmaceuticals that Western medicine uses. So there's intelligence in plants which live in nature, which brings us to our own nature. And so, I use the energies of plants like tobacco, which is a master plant, to transform energy to help humans.
I love it. I love it. Well, you're talking about a rattle. I'll show you mine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
My daughter who's studying herbalism made this.
That comes off a beach. That is actually sea kelp, or it's
Yes,
kelp.
bull kelp, the
Yep.
the part that grows on the bottom of the ocean. And once a year, it kind of washes up on the coast, and then there's some rocks and some, I think, corn kernels in here to make it
Yeah.
look.
Mine is on my altar at the moment, but
Oh, so pretty.
this is uh, bison, and this is a root from a tree. And I made this rattle getting ready to go on Vision Quest, where I sat out in the woods with me in a blanket for 3 days and nights with no food and no water,
What?
which I've done 3 different times too. Uh,
So that's a real ritual from Native American and other maybe Toltec things as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
You
that's
go
Northwest
out
Coast.
until you find some answer, or you find your spirit animal, or you've done that multiple times.
I've done it 3 different times, staying
Wow.
out for 3 days and nights without any food or water in my little area surrounded by prayer ties. And yeah, fascinating experience. The last time I went out, I realized I don't need to suffer anymore. Suffering is optional, and I choose not to suffer. So when I came down, I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that again.
Including the 3 day suffering. You're
Yeah,
done.
including the 3 days of suffering. I'm like, I'm not suffering.
Oh, that's a beautiful message. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't you think that for people that are listening, they probably want to know more about intuition and they want to know more about dreams and ethereal world that we live in? Suffering is optional, but we live in a world of duality where there's good and bad and light and dark and pain and joy. And we do believe, many of us, that suffering is the way to be enlightened.
Yeah. Um, I get it. And it's a choice. Like,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
I experience joy and I experience sadness. And sometimes I cry from joy and sometimes I cry because my heart's broken.
Mm.
Um, but I don't have to suffer, like, uh, whatever's happening now will change. And
And maybe that's it. The suffering is the story we're telling ourselves about it.
well, and so much of what we experience, it's our story about it that
Yeah.
makes it live on. And sometimes we just need to change the story. And,
Yeah.
my past, there was one point where I sort of turned my back and walked away from it. And I realized, no, that is what got me to where I am. I actually want to walk with my past.
Mm.
Um, but, it's interesting to see where if we're keep ourselves energetically clean, anything is possible on where we can go from here.
Anything is possible. Although most
Anything.
humans think um, there's only a few things possible.
Well, and
The things
that's
their parents did, maybe a little bit better. The things their friends are doing, maybe a little bit better. Then they really, you're a person that can help people see beyond that mistaken belief that life is hard and it's a struggle and you have to do it again the next day.
yeah. Well, it's time we start dreaming again,
Yeah.
and then we can take some tobacco, which is programmable, put it on our heart, dream into what we want, wrap some fabric around it, hang it in a tree, and let the spirits work with that dream and that intention
Mhm.
24/7. And then we just show up to the world and do whatever's next and see what happens over time. And all of a sudden, you're standing. All you need to do is turn a couple degrees to be standing in a completely different place 6 months from now. So it's not necessarily about changing everything all at once, but
Yes.
if I just aim a slightly different direction, you will be standing in a different place in 6 months.
Now, does it matter what color the fabric is?
No, you can choose any color fabric that you resonate with.
Does it matter how big it is?
Doesn't matter how big it is. I
And
like
then
to do a
when after
handful of
you hang it
tobacco.
in a tree for a while, should you take it down and burn it? Yes or no?
I would say once the dream is manifested, you can bury
Okay.
it or burn it. And I would hang it in a tree where no one else will mess with it
Okay. Mm.
because it's just between you and your guides and allies. So it's not for anyone else to have their hands on.
Got
Uh,
it. So what if you live in an apartment? You could put it on your altar, I suppose.
I live on the 14th floor of a condo tower, and I have two medicine bundles out. One is in lavender, and the other is in willow on my balcony, where no one else
Okay.
is going to mess with it, and the spirits work with it 24/7. So
All right. Beautiful. Kind of
you
like
can
the
also just
prayer flag.
hang it in a park somewhere on the backside of a tree where nobody sees it.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah. I
yeah,
love that. Sneaking around to hang it in a tree that no one's going to mess with.
yeah.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I tell people they can incubate a dream if they want to. Do you ever work with that with your people that you can plan on having a solution or an idea of what to do about something you're pondering by telling yourself, I'm going to dream about this tonight.
I belonged to a dream group for 4 years, and we
Ooh.
would incubate all the time. So if I have say I want to dream for a client, I'll go in and with a question at night, And then as I'm going to sleep, I just say, show me what I can know about X. And then I
Yes.
just keep saying that, show me what I can know about X, about whatever the subject is. And I just say it maybe 20 times, so I go to sleep. And then that night I will have a dream about that shows me what I can know about that particular subject. And I write it down because otherwise I'll forget. So I wake up in the night, make some notes, and then I unpack it by myself or with them if I'm dreaming for someone else. But I use Dream Space. Dream Space is like night school for me.
Yeah.
It's
That's
it
a good
is
way to put it.
it is a wealthy place, and so rather than just go to sleep, why don't we learn how to navigate in that world and move around and bring back wisdom?
I love that so much. So, how can people find you, Joe? Let's let them know.
Well, first place would be houseofenergetics.com.
Okay.
You can also find me on Instagram the same way, House of Energetics. And I have yet to make my first TikTok video, but you can find me there shortly at House of Energetics on TikTok. And so I invite you to come to any of those places and send me a note.
I love it. And I'll put all those links in the show notes for people. It's been such a delightful pleasure to chat with you today, Joe. It's been
Thank
great.
you so much, Dee Lisa. I love you to pieces.
I love you back.
All right.
Okay. Bye,
Have a wonderful day.
everybody.
Bye.